A 45-year-old black CEO stepped into her own luxury hotel and was told, "We're completely booked tonight." She didn't raise her voice. She made one phone call and watched their faces change. She didn't ask for special treatment. No VIP welcome, no presidential suite, just a room key and a quiet place to prepare for tomorrow's acquisition meeting. But when Morgan Taylor walked through the gleaming doors of the Imperial Grand in Chicago, everything went sideways. She moved with quiet dignity. No clicking heels or jangling jewelry, just a simple gray pantsuit, comfortable flats, and a leather overnight bag. No entourage, no driver, no assistant hovering nearby. She looked like any business traveler, or maybe someone who didn't belong. The front desk gleamed under crystal chandeliers. A young receptionist named Amanda glanced up from her computer, offering that practiced smile, the one that says, "You're about to be disappointed." "Checking in?" Morgan asked, her voice warm but firm. "Yes, under Taylor, Morgan Taylor." Amanda's manicured fingers tapped across the keyboard. She frowned, blinked twice. "I don't see a reservation under that name." "That's fine. There should be a suite permanently reserved for me." Amanda's eyebrows shot up. Her voice cooled. "Ma'am, we're at full capacity tonight. You need a confirmed booking to stay here. Hotel guests only." Morgan's smile remained steady, but something shifted in the air. She glanced past Amanda to the bronze plaque mounted on the wall. The Imperial Grand, a Taylor global property. Her name wasn't just on a reservation. It was on the building deed. "I am a guest," she said quietly, "and I own this hotel." Amanda froze. For a heartbeat, she looked stunned. Then her lips curled into something between amusement and disbelief. "You own the Imperial Grand?" Morgan nodded once, calm, certain. Amanda reached for her phone. "I need to call my manager." "Please do." Across the marble lobby, conversations paused. A couple at the concierge desk turned to look. A businessman lowered his newspaper. The bartender stopped mid-pour. Morgan felt it, that familiar weight settling on her shoulders, the silent judgment, that look that said, "Someone must be lying," and we all know who. Minutes later, a man in a tailored suit emerged from a side door. His badge read, "Daniel Wilson, Night Manager." He scanned Morgan quickly, then plastered on a smile. "Good evening. Is there an issue with your reservation?" "She claims to own the hotel," Amanda said, voice carrying across the lobby. Daniel hesitated, Adam's apple bobbing. Morgan held his gaze steady. "I don't claim I do. My name is Morgan Taylor, CEO of Taylor Global. Your paychecks have my signature on them." Daniel adjusted his tie. Sweat beaded at his temple. "Of course, just one moment, please." He stepped away, murmuring urgently into his radio. Morgan didn't pace, didn't fidget, didn't check her watch, but the tension thickened as security appeared, one by the elevators, another near the entrance. Not threatening, just present, making a point. She didn't flinch, but inside something burned hot and familiar, not because they didn't recognize her, but because they'd already decided she didn't belong. Again, she could have pulled out her ID, company credentials, board meeting minutes, photos from the groundbreaking ceremony 7 years ago. Instead, she stepped back, pulled out her phone, and made one call. 28 seconds. That's all it took. She stood by a marble column, waiting. No unnecessary words, no wasted energy. At the front desk, Amanda kept typing frantically, as if the computer might suddenly confirm she was right. Daniel returned, clutching a folder, eyes darting around the lobby. "Ms. Taylor," he said, emphasizing her name this time, "there seems to be some confusion. We just need to verify—" Morgan cut in softly. "Verify all you want. I'm not leaving." Daniel looked at security, who shifted uncomfortably but held their positions. The standoff continued. She noticed 3 women at the bar whispering behind cocktail menus, a bellhop pretending to arrange luggage. The valet had stopped opening doors, and then she saw it, Amanda frantically searching on her phone under the desk, probably Googling Morgan Taylor CEO, expecting to find nothing. It would have been funny if it weren't so painfully familiar, because people had a fixed image of what success looked like, what power sounded like, what ownership wore. And someone like her, dark skin, natural hair pulled into a simple bun, minimal makeup, practical clothes, didn't match their picture. That's what cut deepest. Not the denial, but that it was so predictable. She remembered another hotel years ago in Dallas. She was 32, newly appointed CFO. Security followed her from the moment she walked in. Only the company president coming down personally had prevented her removal. She hadn't forgotten that day. And here she was, 13 years later, still proving her identity in a building with her name on the ownership papers. She sighed softly, looking around the lobby. No apology yet, no correction, just awkward silence and people pretending not to stare. Then the elevator doors opened. 3 people stepped out, moving with purpose, and everything was about to change. 2 women and 1 man emerged from the elevator. They wore expressions of controlled panic. Regional Director Sarah Jenkins, Head of Operations Michael Bennett, Corporate Security Chief Aisha Williams. They moved across the lobby with rapid steps, faces tight with recognition. Morgan knew without asking someone had finally looked at her photo. Someone had made the connection. Sarah reached her first, breathless. "Miss Taylor, we are so deeply sorry." Michael followed, tablet in hand. "This is completely unacceptable. We're addressing it immediately." Aisha turned toward security, making a sharp gesture. Both guards retreated instantly. Daniel approached with fresh panic in his eyes. "Ms. Taylor, please accept our sincere apologies for this misunderstanding." Morgan raised one hand slightly. The entire lobby fell silent. "Suite 1400 still available?" Her voice remained calm, unchanged. Sarah nodded quickly. "Yes, ma'am, being prepared as we speak." "Good, I'll take it." The power had shifted. Everyone felt it. The air itself seemed to bend toward her now. Amanda stood frozen behind the desk, face drained of color. Her fingers had stopped typing, her earlier smirk replaced by a wide-eyed shock. Morgan watched as realization spread across the lobby. Whispers turned to silence. Stares became averted eyes. The bartender suddenly found glasses to polish. The couple at the concierge desk looked away. Morgan didn't gloat, didn't fold her arms or lift her chin victoriously. She simply stepped toward the front desk, placed her phone down, and waited for her key. "Your suite is ready," Michael said, swiping a card and offering it with both hands. "The penthouse, as always." Morgan took it without comment. Sarah leaned closer. "We've scheduled an emergency staff meeting for 7 a.m. HR is already involved." "Disciplinary action begins tonight," Aisha added. Morgan glanced at Amanda, who was now staring at her keyboard, chewing her lower lip. The young woman's hands trembled slightly. "You'll speak with her?" Morgan asked quietly. Michael nodded. "Yes, ma'am, with HR present." Morgan paused. "I'll speak with her too. Not now. Tomorrow morning." Amanda looked up, fear visible in her eyes. Morgan turned toward the elevator. No one spoke to her directly. No one needed to. The path cleared automatically. Heads turned as she walked. Some guests whispered, others pretended not to notice. The elevator doors closed behind her, and Morgan finally exhaled. Suite 1400 smelled of jasmine and clean linen. The lights were already adjusted to the soft amber she preferred. A fresh fruit platter sat beside a bottle of sparkling water. A handwritten note with her initials waited on the desk. She moved through the room slowly, not checking for cleanliness, but for attitude, for care, for proof that someone still remembered what hospitality meant. Because this hotel wasn't just a business. It was her vision. She remembered being 35, sitting in bank offices across the country, men in expensive suits who barely looked at her business plan, who offered predatory terms and patronizing advice. She proved them all wrong. And now, 18 years later, Taylor Global owned 16 luxury properties from Miami to Seattle. Yet, she was still explaining who she was. Her phone buzzed, a message from her executive assistant. Crisis team assembled, media strategy ready if needed. Do you want a statement prepared? Morgan paused. She could make this public with one word, one tweet, and it would become a headline. One interview, and the hotel would face a PR disaster. But this wasn't about public humiliation. It wasn't about revenge. It was about respect, about seeing people clearly. No statement needed. Internal matter, we'll handle personally. She set her phone down and sat at the edge of the bed, hands folded in her lap. Outside, Chicago continued its nighttime hum. Taxis honked. Music drifted from rooftop bars. Inside, the suite remained quiet, almost too quiet. Then a knock at the door. Room service arrived with fresh coffee, a note of apology from the kitchen manager, and an offer for a complimentary massage therapist. Morgan thanked the young man quietly. When the door closed, she took a sip of coffee and walked to the window. The city lights sparkled below, 1,000 tiny stars spread across the urban landscape. So many stories happening behind those windows. So many people fighting to be seen. She felt something shifting, not just in this hotel, but in herself. Tomorrow would be different. Tomorrow would be about choices, about consequences, but also about growth. She looked at her reflection in the window glass. CEO, hotelier, visionary, and still someone who had to prove her right to walk through her own front door. The phone on the desk rang softly. Ms. Taylor, this is Daniel. Everything is in place for tomorrow morning. The staff has been notified. HR will be present at 8 a.m. Thank you, Daniel. And I just wanted to say personally, I am deeply sorry. Morgan paused. It's not about being sorry, Daniel. It's about being better. She hung up and returned to the window. Tomorrow would come soon enough. At precisely 7:30 a.m., Morgan Taylor stepped out of the elevator into the lobby. Different woman, different energy. Her charcoal suit was impeccable. Black pumps clicked against marble. Gold earrings caught the morning light. Her natural hair framed her face with purpose and pride. This wasn't the quiet traveler from last night. This was the CEO. The lobby froze. Conversations died mid-sentence. A bellhop nearly dropped a suitcase. The barista behind the coffee kiosk stopped mid-pour. Sarah, Michael, and Aisha were already waiting near the concierge desk. 3 folders, 2 tablets, and untouched coffee cups sat between them. They looked like people who hadn't slept. They probably hadn't. Morgan nodded once and walked straight to the small conference room behind reception. The others fell in step behind her. Inside, seated stiffly, were Daniel, Amanda, and a woman who introduced herself as Patrice from HR. Her notepad was already open, pen poised. Morgan remained standing at the head of the table, arms folded. No one spoke. The silence stretched until she finally asked, "Would someone like to explain what happened last night?" Amanda stared at her hands. Daniel cleared his throat but produced no words. Morgan waited. Finally, Amanda whispered, "I just didn't think you were." She trailed off. "You didn't think I was the owner," Morgan finished for her. Not angry, just factual. Amanda nodded, eyes down. "Did I raise my voice last night?" Morgan asked. "No, ma'am." "Did I threaten anyone?" "No." "Did I cause a scene?" Amanda's voice was barely audible. "No." Morgan took a slow breath and looked toward Patrice. "I'm not here for public shaming. I'm here for accountability." Patrice nodded. "Understood." Michael spoke up. "We've prepared formal reprimands. Amanda will be removed from front desk duties pending retraining. Daniel is on administrative review while we interview other staff members." Morgan nodded once, then sat down. She turned to Amanda again. "How long have you worked here?" 3 months. "And in that time, did you ever wonder who built this place? Where it came from?" Amanda hesitated. "I guess I just assumed it was some big corporation, a group of investors in suits." Morgan let the moment linger. "Do you know how many hotels I've built across this country?" Amanda shook her head. 16, from Chicago to San Francisco. every one of them created with a purpose, to make luxury accessible, to make service personal. She leaned forward slightly. So tell me why, when I walk into my own lobby, I'm still invisible to the people who work under my name. The question wasn't angry. It was tired, honest, heavy. Amanda looked like she wanted to disappear. Daniel stared straight ahead, jaw tight. Sarah spoke up. We're implementing immediate changes, staff-wide sensitivity training, revised onboarding protocols, no exceptions. Morgan looked at her. Make sure it's not just checking boxes. I don't want scripted responses. I want understanding. She stood again. The meeting was over. As she walked out, the lobby seemed to straighten itself. Staff nodded nervously. No one spoke directly to her. She wasn't interested in their performance now. She was looking for real change. But there was one more conversation she needed to have, one that had nothing to do with policy. Morgan waited until the morning rush subsided. She gave it time, not for dramatic effect, but so there would be nowhere to hide. No ringing phones, no guests to distract. She spotted Amanda in the staff room behind the bar, alone at a small table with a half-eaten muffin and untouched coffee. Her phone lay face down. She looked like she hadn't slept either. Morgan didn't send someone to fetch her. She walked in herself. Amanda straightened immediately, nearly knocking over her cup. Relax, Morgan said, pulling out the chair across from her. Just talk. Amanda swallowed hard. Yes, ma'am. Drop the ma'am. This isn't formal. Amanda nodded, eyes down. They sat in silence for a moment. Then Morgan spoke. Have you ever worked somewhere that made you feel small? Amanda looked up, surprised by the question. Yeah, most places actually. Tell me. Amanda hesitated, then shrugged. I worked at a restaurant on Michigan Avenue for 2 years. Customers snapped their fingers to get my attention. Management blamed us for everything. I felt invisible most days. Morgan nodded slowly. So you know what it feels like to be dismissed? Yes. Then help me understand how last night happened, how you looked me in the eye and decided I didn't belong. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was heavy with realization. Amanda's voice cracked. I don't know. I didn't mean to. She paused. When you walked in, I just thought you didn't look like what? Amanda didn't answer. Like someone who owns luxury hotels? Morgan finished for her. Amanda nodded slightly, shame coloring her face. And what does that person look like? Amanda didn't have an answer. The real problem exposed itself in her silence. Morgan leaned forward. That picture in your head, it affects everything. Your decisions, your actions, how you treat people walking through that door. I'm sorry, Amanda whispered. Really, I know that's not enough, but I am. Morgan nodded. Apologies are a start, but I didn't come for that. I came so you would see me, not as your boss, not as a cautionary tale, as a person. She stood up. I don't need you to be perfect. I need you to be aware. Every guest who walks through those doors deserves dignity. Start there and you'll never have moments like last night again. Morgan walked back through the lobby, shoulders straight, head high. Something felt different, lighter, because the message had landed. Things would change. Maybe not everywhere, not all at once. But here in this space, with these people, something had shifted. As her car pulled away from the curb, she didn't look back. She didn't need to. She'd left something behind. The weight of having to explain her worth. And what replaced it was better. Understanding, growth. For them and maybe even for herself. Because when the world refuses to see you, you make sure you see yourself. Clearly, without apology. You walk in anyway. And when they finally see you, you make sure they never forget. If this story made you think about how you judge others, share it. Leave a comment about a time someone underestimated you and how you handled it. And subscribe for more stories that speak truth to power.